Hey, welcome back to the vlog. This is episode 12? 12. And it is a Friday night. Originally, the family and I were going to go to the drive-in and see the new Black Widow movie, but I don't know if you can tell behind me, probably not, but it's kind of raining, so we're going to go tomorrow night instead. And so I looked over at my wife and said, can I go play cards? And she said, yeah. So I'm making the rare Friday night appearance, which is exciting. I haven't played on a Friday night in a while. So, last couple sessions have been a little bit rough. It's been a little bit up and down, but looking to go in there and make some good plays and make some money. So let's get to it. When I showed up, the room was absolutely packed. The wait list was over 70 people long, but somehow I glitched my way to the top of it, and it won't take me very long to get involved in hands. Our third hand in, we're in the big blind, and we look down at King-Queen offsuit. A middle position player raises to $12. The cutoff calls and the button calls. The small blind folds, and I don't necessarily want to play this hand out of position for that price. I want to try to go ahead and weed out some weaker hands. And so, I put in the 3-bet to $40. Probably should have gone a little bit bigger with so many people in the pot. I get a call from the original raiser, the cutoff, and the button. So, we are off to a flop with a semi-marginal hand out of position 4 ways. Flop is King Jack 6 with 2 diamonds. All things considered, probably a dream flop for me. I want to go ahead and continue putting pressure on, so I lead out for $75. The middle position player then shoves all in. The cutoff folds and the button folds. I didn't get re-raised pre-flop, so I'm not putting him on aces or ace-king, and if he has those, then so be it. I don't think I could get a much better flop for this marginal hand, and I also have a backdoor flush draw, so I make the call. When I call, my opponent asks me if I have aces, and I tell him no. My opponent ends up tabling his hand, and he does in fact have ace-king. I'm a little bit surprised because I didn't face a 4-bet pre-flop, but by not 4-betting, he actually really disguised the strength of his hand. We're off to a turn. The turn is a king of hearts. The river is a 5 of clubs. Afterwards, the player in seat 8 asks if I have a vlog. He says he plays a lot of 2-5, and you don't see that 3-bet very often from the blinds in 1-2. He mentions that he sees it way more at the 2-5 level. So, I'll take that as a compliment. He also subscribed to the channel while I was at the table, so shout out to you, F. Thanks for the support. While he may recognize my great poker play, everybody else sees a fish. I'm surrounded by sharks, and I just put blood in the water. I want to cut in here and speak to that for a second. You know, people are starting to notice that I'm making a vlog. It's pretty obvious when you have a cell phone stand that you put right in front of you and point one of your 2 cell phones directly where your hole cards are and flash your hole cards in front of the phone every time. So people are starting to take notice. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what I'm doing. And so often it'll generate conversation about the vlog and people will ask about it. And sometimes people will actually subscribe to the channel right there while we're at the table, which is awesome. And sometimes I don't even bother to ask these people's names. First of all, f***ing rude. Second of all, I'm just kind of awkward. Even though I teach for a living at 2 different colleges, and before I did that, I worked in television where pretty much my entire career was built off of networking. I tell every new group of students to the first 2 things they need to write down are that internships are everything and networking is everything. Yet, for whatever reason, when it comes to trying to grow this channel, I just get really awkward and weird. So, if you've subscribed to the channel, even if we haven't met, of course I appreciate that. I mean, subscribing is how the channel grows. So I appreciate anybody that takes the time to subscribe to the channel. But if we've ever met and talked about my poker vlog and I didn't even bother asking your name, I just want you guys to know I appreciate you as well. So big shout out to F, shout out to Dan, Devin, Matt, Aaron, and all the other people who I didn't bother to be polite and ask your name. I just want to let you guys know I really appreciate you guys checking the channel out and subscribing. And I really hope to grow this channel, but I need to get a little bit better with my networking. So again, just want to say thanks to everybody who asks about the vlog and drops a like and a subscribe. Really appreciate it. In the very next hand, we're in the small blind and we look down at Jack Queen offsuit. There's 2 calls before the button raises to $12. I make the call, as do the 2 original limpers, and so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 4-5-6 with 2 clubs and a spade. I check, and surprisingly the action checks through, so we're off to a turn. The turn is a queen of spades, so I've turned top pair, but there's 2 flush draws on the board. I lead for $15, probably way too small of a bet with the size of the pot and having such a marginal hand. 2 of the 3 players call, and so we're off to a river. The river is a 10 of diamonds, it shouldn't change much. Both flush draws missed. I lead for $20, looking to get very thin value from any worse queen or maybe 7s through 9s. One player in late position folds, but the other one calls. I show my hand and he shows me a queen and folds. So I was able to extract a little bit of value.
Yeah, you did.
We were in late position and we looked down at ace-9 offsuit. There's 2 limpers, and when the action gets to me, I bump it up to $12. The small blind and the hijack both make the call, and so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is queen 9-6 rainbow, so I flop middle pair. It checks to me, and I continue on for $17. The small blind folds, but the hijack calls, and so we're off to a turn heads up. The turn is a 3 of diamonds, brings a diamond flush draw on. The hijack quickly checks to me, and I want to keep building a pot, so I bet $25. The hijack does not disappoint. He makes the call, and so we're off to see a river. The river is a blank. It doesn't change anything. It checks to me, and I don't really see a need to bet here, as I don't think any worse hand will call me. So I check back. The hijack does not want to show his hand, and he announces that he has a king. I'm assuming king high. So we show our hand, and we're good. 2 hands later, there's a button straddled to $5. We're in the cutoff, and we look down at king 10 of clubs. There's 1 caller, and I decide to go ahead and just make the call here, as opposed to raising, and the button checks his option, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is 10-6-3, so I flop top pair. Middle position leads for $15. I make the call, and the button calls as well, so we're off to a turn. The turn is another 3, so it's paired the board. Middle position leads out for $25 here, and I think I may have the best hand, so I want to go ahead and start building a pot, and I raise to $60. I'm looking to push out any stronger 10 off this hand. The button calls all in for less, about $40, and middle position makes the call. So we're off to a river 3 ways with 1 all in. The river is a queen. That's a pretty terrible card. The hijack checks, and I go ahead and check my hand. There's no way I can be good here in this situation. I have to show first for the side pot with middle position, and I table my hand. Middle position is really reluctant to show. The button shows 10-7. The player in middle position finally shows a 10 and ends up folding. I couldn't believe I was good against both players. I have played 4 hands tonight, and after dumping a buy-in early, I'm now up $70. What the is going on? The No Respect Tour rolls on. This time we're in +1, and we look down at Jack 8 offsuit. I'm going to open the action for $12. I get a call from middle position and the small blind as well, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is 6-deuce-7 with 2 spades. The action checks through, so we're off to a turn. The turn is an 8 of spades, so now I've picked up a pair, plus I have a flush draw. I've got a little equity in this hand. The action checks to me, and I just throw a $5 bet out. I'm actually kind of hoping to get re-raised here, so I can determine the strength of my hand based on the size and most likely call to evaluate a river. Middle position folds, but the small blind snaps me off, and we're off to a river. The river is a 10 of spades, so I've hit my flush, and once again the action checks to me. Being that I've played this hand so weird, I now overbet the river and bet out for $40. The small blind is really thinking. I've played with this guy a lot, and he'll call me off light at times, and so he does in fact end up making the call. I show my flush, and he angrily mucks his hand.
I know, right?
I had a little bit of an epiphany in the middle of a hand tonight. I didn't record it, but I still want to share this with you and get your opinion on it. I'm in middle position with 9-10 of diamonds. +2 opens the action to $7. The table was getting pretty tight, and so the opening range was $6 to $10 pre-flop. I ended up just calling, and we actually went 5 ways to a flop. The flop was 6-10 jack, so I flopped middle pair. The action checked all the way through, and the turn was a king. It checked to me, and I decided to lead for $30. My intent was to represent the straight with ace-queen. but how can I represent that when I only called a $7 open? Ace Queen is almost always a 3-betting hand, especially to such a small open. I kind of realized while waiting for my opponent to call that I like to represent a lot of hands, but if my pre-flop action doesn't make sense, then those moves are never going to get through. This one didn't make any sense, so my opponent ended up making the call and we went off to a river heads up. The river was a blank that didn't change anything. My opponent checked to me and I let out for $65. My opponent thought about it and then folded Ace 10 face up. So, while I may have represented strength in the hand, there's no way I represented the hand that I intended to. I have got to stop calling pre-flop and either be the raiser or the folder. This is an interesting spot that I got into, and I'm interested to see what you guys think, so make sure you leave a comment and tell me how you would have played this hand. We're in +1 and we look down at 5-6 offsuit. Under the gun folds and I open the action to $12. +2 calls, the cutoff calls, the button calls, the small blind calls, and the big blind calls. So we're off to a flop with like 100 people in it and a super bloated pot. The flop is 7-8 jack, so I flopped an open-ended straight draw. It checks to +2 who bets out $20. The cutoff folds, but the button calls and the small blind calls as well. The big blind folds, and at this price, I think I have to call, so I do, and we're off to a turn. The turn is a 7 of diamonds, so it pairs the board. It checks to +2 again, who bets out for $20. The button calls, and then the small blind jams all in for about $120. I'm open-ended, but I have no pair. And if I were to hit one of my cards on the river, I'd have a really terrible pair on a paired board. It's only $120 more to win a little over $300, but I also still have 2 people behind me to act. So, what would you do in this situation? Leave your answer in the comments below. Should I have maybe put in a check raise pre-flop? Should I be calling this turn with all the equity I have? Everybody ends up folding, and the opponent shows Ace 7 for trips. So, he had the made hand at the time, but again, I'm really interested to see what you guys think and how you would have played it. We were in +1 and we looked down at Queen 9 offsuit. For whatever reason, I opened the action to $12. Only the button calls, and so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is 9 jack 7. I go ahead and decide to down bet here to $10, and my opponent calls, so we're off to a turn. The turn is a 6 of spades, so brings in a flush draw. I lead for $17 looking to charge that spade draw, and my opponent calls, so we're off to a river. The river is a 4 of hearts. I go ahead and check because I don't think any worse hand is going to call a bet that I make. And I think the only hand that's going to get 3 streets of value is something containing a jack, which I'm losing to. My opponent checks behind and he shows 10-7, so we're going to take this one down. In a hand I seem to be missing footage for, we're on the button and we look down at Queen 10 offsuit. There's one caller before it gets to me, and I raise to $17, probably a little bit large. Only the small blind calls me, and he checks dark, so we're off to a flop. The flop is Ace 6-9, and with his dark check, I check behind and we go to the turn. The turn is a 4, and once again my opponent checks to me, so I bet $30 trying to steal the pot, or at least represent that I have the ace, but my opponent calls, and we're off to a river. The river is a blank, it doesn't change anything. The action checks through, and my opponent shows 8-9. Perhaps betting the river, I could have gotten a fold, but probably not. This guy's been calling down with one pair all night. In this next hand, we're in the cutoff and we look down at Queen 10 suited. There's 2 callers before the hijack raises to $8. I make the call and the low jack calls as well, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is Ace 6-4 with 2 diamonds. It checks to the hijack who bets $10. I call and the low jack calls as well, so we're off to a turn 3 ways. The turn is a queen of spades, so I pick up top pair. The action checks to me, and I decide to go ahead and check here to try to disguise the strength of my hand, and we're off to a river. The river is a blank, doesn't change anything. It checks to me again, and I bet $25. I'm hoping my check on the turn makes my opponents think that I don't have much of a hand. My bet gives opponents about 3-1 to make a call, so they can call me off if they're a little bit light. But both players fold, and we win this one. It was starting to get a little bit late, and the dynamics of the table were changing, so I decided to go ahead and rack up and book a very small win. Alright, so that'll wrap that one up. What an interesting night. And then the table I was at was great in the beginning. Now, of course, you know, I dumped a $200 buy-in 3 hands in when I kind of misplayed king queen. And so obviously that's going to bring the sharks out. And there were like 3 or 4 hands right after where people were just calling me super light with everything. And I got all my money back. So like I went down 200 and then I was up $70 after like 15 minutes. It was real strange. I didn't play very well tonight. I was acting out of turn sometimes. I couldn't find my iPhone charger, and I searched everywhere. I searched all my pockets. I walked outside. I went back to my car, got a spare charger, sit down. It was around my neck, which I had reached for like 3 times and never grabbed it. I wasn't myself tonight. It was really weird, but the table started off, at least what I thought, so good that I felt like I couldn't leave. It started getting kind of late, so I just decided to book the small win a little bit for my confidence, considering how bad I was playing at times. It was cool. People are noticing that I'm like filming and stuff, and so they're asking about the vlog, and I picked up a couple new subscribers tonight. Shout out to F, shout out to Dan. You know, so it's really cool like to be meeting people and to have them check out my material and subscribe to the channel for the support and stuff like that. And I have a feeling that's going to start to happen a lot more. So into the game for $400, out for $440. So $40 of profit in a little over 2.5 hours. Definitely not going to pay the bills with that, but being in the green, or being in the black is always better than being in the red. So hope you guys liked it. Like, share, subscribe. You guys know the deal, and I will see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.